So you might have seen over the past few days headlines. Medicare-For-All would cost $32 trillion. And for many people, especially people who are not in favor of Medicare-For-All or some form of single-payer healthcare, they'll tweet about that, and that's it, really. $32 trillion, which is really scary. That's a lot of money.
A ton of money.
Which we could be giving to the rich in tax cuts. But instead, we're going to waste on healthcare. Turns out, though, that there's some issues with that figure. So this figure is coming from a libertarian think tank, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. But it might mean maybe you want to look at some of their assumptions that are going into it a little bit. But here's the interesting thing about that figure, is that it sounds like on top of everything else we spend now, we'd suddenly be spending $32 trillion. So is that actually the case?
Well, no, I mean, as we both know, it's not. And by the way, pretty important to mention that libertarian think tank is a Koch brothers funded think tank, which generally says a lot about how they're presenting that data.
Yeah.
But no, you're absolutely right. It's not, it's not exactly as it seems. It's comparing to our current healthcare spending, which would be $2 trillion more than that very scary figure of $32 trillion.
Yeah, they make it sound as if it's additional spending, which, and by many won't understand it. They'll just be wrong when they say that, but there is a significant chunk that are purposefully misleading you about this, that they read at least the first few paragraphs of the articles about this, and they understand that. But I want to show you some of the numbers so you know that what we're talking about. Over the next decade, the US is projected to spend more than $33 trillion plus inflation on healthcare services without any changes to our current system. So that is, of course, more than Mercatus, so that's the think tank. They estimate $32.6 trillion cost to the federal government over the next 10 years. So right there, if you write a headline about this, that's the headline. The savings that would be generated from moving to a single-payer healthcare, something like Medicare-For-All. It is not $32 trillion. That's a number, true, but it's not the interesting one. The interesting one is hundreds of billions of dollars of savings. Now let's talk about some of the specifics. The study concluded that Medicare-For-All would result in significant savings for the government because of lower prescription drug costs, getting on towards $1 trillion over the next decade. Streamlined administrative costs under the plan would save another $1.6 trillion, which is not nothing. And we're not going to go into the specifics here, but you should understand that some of the assumptions that this think tank made about the savings are probably conservative. In terms of administration cost savings, I mean, $1.6 trillion is a lot, but many people believe that the savings would actually be more significant, that the percentage of overhead would be lower than they're assuming it would be there. And you can break down a few of their other assumptions as well, but what we're talking about here is differences of amount of savings. But nobody disputes, including the libertarian think tank, that there would be savings. And by the way, it's not saving money to get the same thing. It's saving money to get a far better, more just and compassionate healthcare system, where we don't have 15% of the country that still doesn't have health insurance and people who have to forgo health benefits because they're worried about co-pays or all of that. It is a far better, more just system for everyone effectively.
Well, I think there's two big things that are sort of being missed in all these stories. Obviously, the first is that this is a huge savings, and the way that it's presented is, I believe the study, or at least articles about this, say that like, well, if we could double taxes and it would still not even pay for this Medicare-For-All plan. Well, that's really just saying that we can't pay for the plan that we have now, and so we should be making any effort to lessen the burden. And I agree. I think these costs are very conservatively estimated. Originally, the number that they said that it would be the savings would be $200 billion. Then they raised it to $2 trillion. And you're absolutely right. That's just the cost to the government. Like, we're already subsidizing uninsured people by paying for them through our insanely expensive insurance. If we cover everyone, it lowers the risk pool. We don't pay deductibles. We don't pay, for that first point doctor visit. Like, this is not just a plan that saves the government money, it saves everybody a ton of money on healthcare, and that's being completely ignored. It's like, not only do we save $2 trillion, but I personally save like $300 a month on health insurance. That should be the lead to this story.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons it's being ignored is 99% of the people that you will see commenting on the story, including, by the way, me, have acceptable health insurance. Like, I'm not likely to go 100%. I mean, God only knows, my diet is horrible. Eventually it'll catch up with me, don't worry. But as of right now, I'm okay. And certainly, I don't know why, it doesn't have to be Anderson Cooper, but Anderson Cooper's doing okay. So when he comments on this, you have to bear that in mind. Nothing against him, maybe he supports it, I doubt it, but maybe. But you do have to understand that the politicians talking about this, the media members talking about this, all of them are not really at risk of being thrown out of their apartment if they suddenly get sick, but regular people are. And so that means that the media needs to talk about those people, show their stories, because it's easy to say falsely that this will cost money if you don't acknowledge what we are already lacking, the problems with the current system and how it is likely to get worse without major fixes like this. And I want to read one quote. It's from when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was on The Daily Show, because I think that people's criticism of Trevor Noah on this particular question was a little bit too strong. I think he was to some extent playing devil's advocate. But when he asked her about the paying for Medicare-For-All, he did come at it with the frame of how do we pay for this, not how do we justify our current system, which is an inherent problem financially and morally. And she responded, a lot of what we need to do is reprioritize what we want to accomplish as a nation. Really, what this is about is saying healthcare is important enough for us to put it first. Education is important enough for us to put it first. Technically, one would have to be first, but first too. And that is a decision that requires political and moral courage from both parts of the aisle, period. And she's right. We are, by not instituting this, we are making a choice, and there will be winners and losers based on that choice, financially, morally, in terms of healthcare as well. What is the cost to a country when people get sick and suffer from chronic illness for decades? What is the cost to a country when these people die? When because of their medical expenses, they shut down their businesses, or they lose their jobs, or they get kicked out of their apartments, all of that, they lose their homes. Those are costs as well. I don't know if they were included in this libertarian think tank study, but they're very real.
I mean, just the fact that on every level, this is clearly a good idea that saves money. That also, we say this a lot, but we're the only developed country that doesn't, put healthcare as one of our major national tent poles where everybody should be healthy and feel safe from the idea of bankruptcy because one thing went slightly wrong with your body, which our bodies go wrong all the time.
Yeah.
Our bodies are constantly failing us, and the fact that we're looking at this like, well, it's pretty expensive, and it's probably going to affect really rich people, and particularly insurance companies, those poor insurance companies. How do we justify this as a nation?
Yeah, and so again, this started off, the headline version is this is bad, really expensive. But just like with all the other attempts to take down these democratic socialist ideas, when you actually look at it, no, they're actually selling this for us. It's gonna save tons of money. Thank you so much for watching this video from The Damage Report. Please don't forget to like the video and also to subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as soon as new videos become available. To hear even more about both this topic and other issues not being covered nearly enough by the mainstream media, you're gonna wanna tune in every morning to our full hour-long show. That's at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, available on the TYT Network channel on YouTube TV.